Now, the Democrats themselves are going to have a chance to define themselves on the issues, although I'm not optimistic that will happen. In an NBC News debate over 2 nights, June 26th, 27th, 2 hours each night. There's so many of them, 24. These people aren't going to have time to define anything. They'll be able to give their name, rank, and serial number, and that'll be about it. You just don't have time. And NBC's got 5 moderators on it. None of the moderators are, maybe you could say Chuck Todd will try to ask a tough question. He probably will. But none of them are particularly incisive. Holt is a pro. Holt moderated one of the debates between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. He did a decent job, although he was much tougher on Trump than he was on Hillary. But I don't expect to get any kind of clarity on any of these people in those debates. But the process of weeding out the Democrats is going to be quick. Remember, they can't run unless they have money. And most of these people are not going to be able to raise any money. There are 5 that will, but I'm going to let our guest define how he sees it before I name them. So Bernard Whitman is the founder and CEO of Whitman Insight Strategies in New York City. This is a crew that does research, not only for political concerns, but in private as well. They do political consulting. They advise campaigns and candidates. And then they do brand stuff. Same thing, they advise how to get your brand in front of the American people. So, first of all, Mr. Whitman, would you think it would be smart for President Trump in his re-election campaign to highlight that the far left is pretty much running wild right now?
Well, Bill, thank you for having me. And I mean, the fact is he's already done that. And he's taken advantage of the fact that we do have a couple high-profile, big-name folks that run pretty far to the left, certainly farther to the left than me, farther to the left than many mainstream Democrats. And I think he's already tried to sort of brand the Democrats as socialists. And I think it's going to be incumbent upon the lead contenders, and we'll get to that in a moment, to really stake a claim for what they believe in. I don't think, with very few exceptions, any are Democratic socialists or socialists, obviously Bernie Sanders being the most prominent one and AOC being another. But the rest of the field, I think, is far more moderate. And I think some of the candidates that are more sort of center-left have drifted leftward. And I think that's going to present an opportunity for candidates who are more moderate, more pragmatic, and more in the middle to make a case. And I think
but they're afraid. They're afraid they'll be attacked in social media by the far left, like Biden was. They're afraid.
And that makes sense because that's where a lot of the energy is. That's where a lot of the conversation is. That's where a lot of the punditry is. But the truth is the American people aren't there. And that's why I think you see Joe Biden leading the polls. And I think that's also helps explain Buttigieg, Mayor Pete Buttigieg from South Bend, Indiana, his rise, because he is certainly far more pragmatic, middle of the road, mainstream America, small town, Midwest. And I think he's going to be one of the 5 to ride this all the way.
Give us the names of the 5 that you think are going to break out from the 24.
And I think this has been consistent in polling as well, and we'll talk about the utility and value of that. But clearly Biden, you really see through the polls 5 tiers, if you will. Okay. Biden is in this tier by himself, getting about 30 to 35%, a little less than Iowa, about 30 to 35%. Sanders is in sort of the second tier, typically in the 15 to 20 range. Then you have Elizabeth Warren. I would put her in her own tier, in third tier. She's about 10 to 15 points, a little bit better in Iowa, so that's good for her. Then you have the fourth tier, which is really Kamala Harris, and Pete Buttigieg, running about 5 to 10% in the polls. Buttigieg actually does better in Iowa and better than New Hampshire than that 5 to 10. And then you have tier 5, which is everybody else, which is running about tier 5.
All right, I agree. I think Biden and Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Buttigieg, and Harris will be the ones that probably go forward. But in this debate in Miami, I don't think any of these candidates are going to be able to do anything to break out because they're not going to have enough time to do it.
Well, Elizabeth Warren probably had very mixed feelings about being sort of the only top candidate that's not on the first night. She's on the second night, and I think she's going to end up destroying the other 9 people that are going to be on the debate stage with her. She's much, much stronger, I think, than anyone else there. In the first debate, you've got Biden, you got Sanders, you got Buttigieg, and I think Harris as well. You got 2 hours, you have 10 people. I think the 5 candidates that we mentioned, will distinguish themselves. And I think there'll probably be a few others that might get some additional name recognition and support as a result. But it is going to be a bit of a cluster.
Yeah, I look, the listener, the viewer can only absorb so much. So the reason that Trump bolted to the top wasn't because of any policy that he put forth in the debates with the 17 Republicans. It was because he marginalized them and made fun of them and called them names. That's why.
And he stuck out. He knows how to brand.
Right.
I think
how are these people? How are these people going to stand out? So Biden, basically, his strategy is hold what you have, and change every position you ever held, so that far left doesn't bring out more women that says you did stuff that you shouldn't have done. Biden's afraid of the far left. He's afraid of them. Move on and these people. Sanders has no chance. America is not going to elect Bernie Sanders, a committed, hardcore socialist president. He's not.
I am not a Sanders fan, but I think he very well may have beaten Donald Trump in the last go-around.
Never.
But that was a very different type of election.
Never in a million years will America
the truth is
elect Bernie Sanders. He'd carry 5 states.
I think that Biden and Sanders, unfortunately for them, have nowhere to go but down. They are running at the top. They are known quantities. People understand who these men are. And the more you see them, I don't think they're going to get any
I agree.
Support.
They're not going to say anything that's going to be different from what they've said. Now, Warren's got a problem because of honesty. And the hardcore doesn't care. The hardcore left likes her quasi-socialistic view. But she's got an honesty problem. Now, in this day and age, with President Trump being accused of lying every hour on the hour, maybe that doesn't matter anymore. But she's been marginalized pretty stringently, has she not, Elizabeth Warren?
Well, no, she has actually come up significantly in the past few months. And unfortunately, Donald Trump has lowered the bar for credibility and veracity. But Elizabeth Warren is the one candidate that has put out policy after policy after policy. And you may not agree with them, but she is getting a lot of attention, a lot of traction among people that want actual policy ideas, which is very different than, for example, Pete Buttigieg. I think he is coming through as someone who is plain spoken for a guy that speaks 7 languages. That's pretty amazing. He's accessible, he's thoughtful, he's measured, he's pragmatic. And I think that he, through the force of personality, can rise to the top, much like Obama did in 2008.
He's trying to do the Obama thing, but Buttigieg has got a problem, is that he's so far left. See, so is Warren. Let me just give you 3.
Warren, yes. Buttigieg, I would not qualify him as
Buttigieg is an open border guy. Buttigieg is an open border guy.
The open border, that's a great marketing term, but it's just not true. I mean, no Democrat actually favors open borders. They favor control. They favor better security at the border.
Did you hear what Kamala Harris said yesterday that I cited before you came on?
I listened to what you said.
Open border policy. And Buttigieg is the same thing. Doesn't want stringent enforcement at the border. Most of the Democrats want to abolish ICE. I don't know if the mayor does or not.
He does not, I believe. And I think that's a bit of a red herring. I mean, abolish ICE is it's a nice phrase, but the mechanics of it are actually, I believe, quite different.
Buttigieg is going to have to do a dance, and I would love to talk to him because I could pin him down. They won't be able to pin him down in the debates. He'll dance, but I do believe he's a far left guy. Kamala Harris disqualified herself, in my opinion, with the open border stuff. So you basically have, I think Biden has got it, unless there's some big thing that happens, because the Democrats don't want to get crushed. You gotta say this: is there anybody in the Midwest, in the South, in the far West mountain states that are going to embrace leniency on the border and socialism? Anybody?
Well,
I don't think so.
I really don't think this open border argument is going to really hold much water. It'll stir up the Republican base. But the real problem for Donald Trump is Donald Trump. He is underwater, meaning his approval ratings are lower than his disapproval ratings are higher than his approval ratings. His favorability is lower than his unfavorability. The majority of people do not want to see him reelected. He's a very, very weak candidate, and also someone who does not, and never should be underestimated. I think that when you have a combination of a very weak president.
It was the same scenario against Hillary Clinton. All the polls at Hillary Clinton.
He got very,
then when it came down to it, all right, when it was Trump against Hillary Clinton, all right, bang, the heartland, the South, all of this, we don't want her. So the same thing could happen here, which is why I think Biden's going to get it. Because if Biden gets it, then you don't have that radicalism, although Biden is changing every opinion he's ever had. You don't have that. All of the others, all of them, you have a radical left approach. Last word.
You know, I think Kamala Harris is someone to watch out for. I do believe that she has moved further to the left than she actually is. And I hope that as we go through this process, candidates drop out, she can sort of stand her ground and bring herself more back to the middle. But I think it's going to be a very close race. You have a weak president. You have a very diffuse field. That suggests a very close race. And don't forget, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote last time, narrowly lost in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Those states look terrible for Donald Trump right now. But I would say to my Democrat friends,
I don't take any of the polls now as anything. I don't believe they mean anything. It's all about the economy and who runs against Trump. He can be beaten, but it's about
he can be beaten, but he is the incumbent, and the economy is not going to get any better.
He's shrewd. He knows how to marginalize. Very, very. I hope, Mr. Whitman, you'll come back. You're a smart guy, and you see it a little bit differently than I do, and that's always interesting. And thanks for taking the time and helping us out today.
Thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate it.